Don't want to reimburse me for the money I sent because you lied? No problem, I'll get it back one way or another. A year and a half ago, I was leaving a very toxic and abusive relationship. I have a job and stable income, but wasn't planning on staying in the state I was staying in. So I didn't want to get a lease and root myself there for a year on the off chance that an opportunity came up. There were several things in the air, so to speak, so I thought it best to rent a room in the meantime with my dog and wait it out. I found a room on CL, and when I toured it, it was nice. A little far, but hey, I needed something quick. I paid prorated rent for 1 month and the full rent for the next. A total of $1,400, which was already more than it should have been, but I wasn't in the position to argue that. I also paid a $500 deposit for damages. Then everything started going downhill. I moved in, and things were fine for a week. Roommate and I hung out a bit and drank and enjoyed our dogs and each other's company. I would let her try foods I cooked and vice versa. Juices, snacks, dinners, I didn't mind. Until one day my meal prep bowl went missing. I did give her one as I knew I would be tired of it soon, but I made 5. 3 were there, 2 were gone. Asked roommate about it, and she claimed she didn't know. First red flag. Only 2 people in this home, and the dogs didn't grow arms and touch it. Then, as I'm helping my friend file her taxes for the first time, a man shows up and serves me a summons for court. He thought I was roommate, and it was for back payment of rent. She has been behind and about to get evicted. I mentioned this, and she exclaimed they were supposed to take that back. So she knew. She brought someone into her situation, knowing this was going to happen. Then the water went out. She didn't pay the bill. I had to shower at work when I drove an hour to the office. She claimed the city was having issues. They weren't. Her internet was out. She didn't pay that bill either. She said it wasn't her fault. She was trying to get me to offer to pay the bill, as I needed it for work. I didn't. I opted to go to the office. She would lock my dog in my room even after she told me it was fine for her to roam, but she didn't really want her to. That's fine, you're home. But she also broke my ceiling fan in the room. My window was broken, so I couldn't open it, and she kept the heat on. My dog was baking in 80 degrees in the house upstairs. Not cool, I told her to stop doing that. Either you lower the AC, or give her the freedom to cool off downstairs since heat rises. Then she told me one day that the maintenance people came to check the fan, and my window, and my dog scared them. The result? She was fined $300 because she wasn't on the lease. I sent it the money. She already had 3 dogs with 1 not on the lease. Make it make sense. Then I started to catch on. She was going to keep asking and try to get more money. I asked for an amended lease to prove my dog was on there now. She got defensive and said I accused her of lying. I didn't, but if it's resolved, why not send the lease? She claimed she'd ask for one, but couldn't promise anything. Final straw was when she told me not even 20 days into the full month that she couldn't afford to live there anymore and asked if I wanted to get a place together. I said no, I'm not putting my social on a lease with yours. So she said she had to move. She wasn't going to reimburse me my deposit or my $300 for my dog. Solution? I came downstairs to moving boxes. She was going to jump ship without so much as an apology. I took a day off sick from work while she went to her job and up and moved all of my stuff and some of hers to a storage unit and got an Airbnb for a few days. I texted her I moved out, and she had 7 days to send my money or else. She laughed it off not knowing. She said she had to evaluate my room for damages, knowing there weren't any. But I figured I'd give it some time, so she knew how serious I was. She got home from work, and my phone started blowing up. I reiterated, 7 days and you'll have your stuff. Otherwise, I'm selling it. She didn't pay, so I got my money back in other means. All but $22, which I was okay with. I sold it all. I wasted my entire tax refund, and then some to move. She knew she wasn't right, and I was pinching pennies at this point. She threatened me with cops, but we both knew that was an empty threat. I spent 20 days in a home I paid a full month's rent for. Never again. Been on my own ever since.
Speakerphone Chat. I had just started my new job and took on the collateral duty of supply clerk for my department. Setting up the new spreadsheets was the easy part. Digging through the past invoices was the hard part. but I eventually got everything entered, only a couple of years' worth. I noticed that a lot of expensive purchases were being made through my department by someone from another department, whose name was the only signature on the invoices. I'll call him Bob, which not his real name. I broadcast an all-hands email reminding everyone that purchases over a certain amount required a supervisor's signature approval, and that no more purchases would be made through my department without that approval. Cue the trigger. Everything was fine until I got a phone call from Bob. He demanded to know why I refused his purchase requests. I reminded him of the email I had sent around. He told me that I didn't make the rules. I told him he was right, but that I do have to follow them, and so does he. He threatened to get me fired for insubordination, cursed me out, hung up, and called back on his supervisor's speakerphone and demanded again to know why I refused his purchase requests. I told him to wait a moment while I got MY manager on MY speakerphone. He told me I didn't need my manager there, and that I should just do as he says. By that time, my manager was able to lean close to the phone and remind Bob just who I worked for and whose orders I should follow. A pissing contest ensued, with my manager and I standing our ground, and Bob doing all the talking at his end. Finally, both managers agreed to meet with Bob and I and present our respective cases to HR. Day of the meeting, we were all gathered together. Bob started out claiming that he had always done it this way, and that he was not about to do any different just because some a-hole from off the street told him he couldn't. I asked an HR person to read from Manual X, page Y, and paragraph Z. She read almost word for word what I had already told Bob and everyone else in the email. He still refused to comply and also refused to explain why. Cue the revenge. Well then, I said, maybe you could explain these invoices instead. The invoices itemized the purchases he had made without his supervisor's authorization. None of the equipment showed up on any corporate inventory listing either. Please tell us where all this stuff is. He just stared at me, his face turning red. UFNG a hole. I don't have to tell you a single thing. The man from legal spoke up and pointed out that his department was also interested in where the expensive equipment might be. That's when Bob's face turned pale, and he refused to say anything more. Cue the fallout. I did not see or hear from Bob after that meeting, but I did hear that he was given the choice of resigning immediately or face a police investigation. My supervisor later told me that as expensive as the missing equipment was, the legal costs would be much more than the equipment's total value. I retired from that job about 25 years later, tricking my slacker coworker into sabotaging himself. I work in an office with a guy I'll call Seth. Seth is that coworker everyone knows. Lazy, always passing his work on to someone else, and somehow always getting away with it. He'll sit around on his phone or go to the bathroom every 10 minutes. He's the kind of guy who will show up late, make some lame excuse about traffic, and then disappear for lunch for 2 hours. For the past 6 months, Seth's favorite target has been me. He'll send emails asking if I can help out with a project, but what he really means is, do all the work while I take the credit. I complained to my boss a couple of times, but somehow Seth always managed to weasel his way out of trouble. The final straw came when he passed off a major report that was due to a client in 2 days, dumping it on me last minute. One day I casually asked him if he was good with Excel, and he admitted he didn't know much about it. Perfect. The next time Seth tried to dump a bunch of spreadsheets on me to organize for his next report, I agreed. But this time, I embedded a series of hidden formulas into the documents. These formulas didn't do anything important, just enough to mess with the numbers if someone didn't know how to check for hidden cells. It took me a little time, but I was careful not to make it too obvious. The kicker? Every time Seth tried to copy and paste the data into his report, it would scramble everything just enough to be completely useless. On the day the report was due, Seth slacked off like usual, assuming I had handled it like always. When the client called, furious because the report was filled with nonsense numbers, Seth panicked. He rushed to fix it, but every time he tried to fix one part of the report, something else would break. He came to me, frantic, and asked for help. I acted confused and said, "Oh, I don't know what happened. Maybe it's a glitch." I gave him some vague advice and watched as he spent the entire day trying to salvage his mess. Our boss found out, and for once, Seth couldn't talk his way out of it. He got lambasted for screwing up such an important project and was put on temporary leave without pay. I guess he'll be doing his own work from now on. Don't want to pay me for the job I worked? Speakerphone will get you. Years ago, I worked on a video production shoot for a company in northern New Jersey. The day went well. I did my job and nobody said anything to me otherwise. I happened to connect with another camera operator this day and got his business card. I invoiced the company for the work I had done and noticed after 30 days that it was still unpaid. Sent the invoice again via email, still did not get paid. Reached out to the company over the phone, and they had the balls to tell me they were not paying me for the day's work I had done because I did not do a very good job. This was obviously news to me as again, no one said anything to me the day of the shoot. Also, I did the work, which means I get paid. Reached out to the other camera guy whose card I had gotten, and he told me they tried to pull the same thing with him. He sent a letter on a letterhead from a law firm and forced the issue and got paid. I followed suit and did eventually get paid. Now fast forward a year or two and I get a phone call one day. It's the same asshole who was refusing to pay me. He has me on speakerphone and is asking about the logistics of an upcoming shoot and blah blah blah. I said, let me stop you for a second. Is this X of X company? Him, yeah, me. You refused to pay me for a job I did 2 years ago and now have the audacity to assume I might work for you again? You're wrong. I don't work with unprofessionals like you. And hung up. So satisfying. Hope everyone in the room heard that and that he felt like the dumbass that he is.
Guy thinking he's alpha getting theirs. It wasn't exactly yesterday, but here goes. I'm out being social with my girls, and I spy a group of guys eyeing us. They are not discreet, and you can tell the fellas that pick on in that group and the ones who think they're all that. One man quietly came over to us, she starting chatting, and bought one of the girls a drink. After some time, he went back to the group, and we could see the tongue lashing he got from the self-perceived alpha. A proceeds to watch us go to the dance floor, and then gives "this is how you do it" gestures. As he approaches me, doing the most vulgar moves, to dance I stop completely and look down. Are you wearing socks with sandals? And without a word our whole group walks off the dance floor and ask the first gentleman to join us at another location. The look on his and his buddies' faces were priceless. Thank you so much for watching the video. For more videos like this, please subscribe.